game number 2 between Lathans and Tmanplays. And we have an interesting matchup, as Lathans on the left side brings in another American division, this time the 3rd US Armored, while Tmanplays on the right is bringing in the 35th Air Assault on the lovely map of WARNO, which means if we go into game number 3, the last map will be 2 ways. And the bans for this game were 5th Blinde, banned by Lathans, and 82nd Airborne, banned by Tmanplays. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Bans make sense, especially after this last game that Tmanplays this time around bans the 82nd. And yeah, let's have some fun here. Lathans versus Tmanplays. 1-0 up for Lathans. Can now put everything in wrap it up here with a 2-0 if it goes well, or Tmanplays can make it an interesting series. 35th Air Assault, for sure, strong division. Really enjoying that one. And yeah, there's, as I said earlier and showed earlier, pretty good money on the line. Yeah, on Match Arena, you can help out with adding money to the prize pool. And you can do so for free here with some stuff on the right side as well. So yeah, let's freaking go here. Let's have some fun. And see who can make it into the semifinals of WARNO League Season 0. Lathans or Tmanplays. And 35th Air Assault, for sure, a nice division. E-Glass coming in here as forward deployment. A lot of forward deployment, obviously. SPGs, not on the UWATs here, interestingly enough. The normal ones got buffed with the latest patch. They now have 15 shots as well. So they are pretty nice, and they're pretty cheap. But the mobility of the UWATs one is quite nice as well. Afghansky AA, okay, so a good amount of anti-helicopter here. Expecting Lathans to use a good amount of helicopters as well. And Lathans with a good amount of AA here. 4 pivots coming in from the get-go. Apache on the battlefield deployed as well. ZSU 23 in the north. M150 coming in. Yeah. Helicopters on the new patch with the rework on autocannons, like all autocannons. Yeah. The 20mm autocannons on and 30mm autocannons on IFVs also really, really nice. But the helicopter ones with the range buff and so on, quite helpful too. And the Apache rockets, especially, pretty cost-efficient tool at the moment. 425 points. And yeah, let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes. Who can get the advantage here? Obviously, 35th with the forward deployment advantage, which can be quite helpful on WARNO, as they're, the 2 most important map zones are in the center of the map. So if you can get an advantage there, that can be game deciding from the get-go. 35th for sure division that can win games quickly. But thanks to 2 cards of T64s, one T64B, one T64BV, they also have some longevity. Yeah, which you can see on my latest YouTube video on the YouTube channel that I just uploaded, where I played with the 35th myself on the new patch. In general, new patch, quite nice. And yeah, let's see how it goes. M150s coming up over here. Scouts. Really a good amount of AA. Lathans doesn't want to leave any wiggle room there for the enemy helicopters. Well, Dejaniki Medis now also a bit better, as Medis now have 6 instead of 4 missiles. Giving them quite a bit more firepower. As you quite often go through went through the 4 missiles relatively quickly and just like 1 or 2 short of actually killing a tank or an IFV. And now you have that extra killing potential on them. So that's quite nice, as the price is unchanged. We have some UWATS SPGs as well, okay. So there are some of these around. That's gonna be interesting. So, and yeah, some of the new heavy MGs, or medium MGs in this case, with 7.6mm with 1200 meter range coming out here as well to help out dealing with infantry. M150s over here, more pivots in the north. Military police, M67s. These didn't get extra ammo, they are still on 8, which is fine, as they were already pretty great beforehand. And they are more of a normal infantry squad with a recoilless rifle and not a dedicated recoilless rifle team, so it makes sense that they don't get the extra ammo in that regard. And yeah, let's see how this will go here down in the middle of Vertigo. For sure, so far, a lot of good games this season in WARNO League. Really enjoyed my time with it. I hope you did as well. If you have any feedback, let me know down in the comments or in the chat what you would like to see changing for WARNO League Season 1, or what you liked a lot about WARNO League Season 0. Like, yeah, all feedback is welcome in that regard, so that we can improve this tournament for when the game actually launched, and yeah, we can go into the real seasons with Season 1. And as this is still somewhat supposed to be a preseason with early access and so on, and I hope to make it bigger and better in the long run. Like, my ideas are with Season 1 going up to 48 people in 3 divisions, and then with Season 2 going up to 64 people in 4 divisions, and then staying at that constantly. That's so far the idea. Yeah, with the base format being the same 16-player tournaments that setup that we have at the moment with groups of 4. So yeah, and then having like 3 to 4 seasons a year. That's currently the idea behind WARNO League in my mind. Yeah, SPGs coming up in the north. Good amount of ZSUs. Snaps. The Spetsnaz got nerfed, rightfully so. Spetsnaz OP into normal Spetsnaz were a bit too strong, especially the normal Spetsnaz was really cost efficient for its CQC firepower. Now, it's still decent, it's still doing its job, but it's not an absolute monster anymore. And the Spetsnaz OP got nerfed 2 ways, like it got 5 points more expensive, and also all the 850mm rocket launchers lost a bit of accuracy, including the RPG 29. It's still the best RPG, the best anti-tank rocket launcher with 60% accuracy, 21 damage, but it's not quite as efficient as it has been before, with its 70% accuracy before. So here we go. Bradleys, no normal tanks, but yeah, Bradleys with their 25mm autocannons and their TOW2s can be really deadly. Good amount of pivots, 4 pivots coming in. M150s here in front. Not quite as deadly as they were in the last patch, as 50 cults got nerfed. For example, they only have 1000 meter range against helicopters now. They don't snipe helicopters from 1700 meters away anymore. But the TOW is still nice for 40-point units, having some solid ATGM, having solid optics. Scouts going down here in the south as well, in a pretty defensive manner, as obviously Lathans knows about the rush potential that Tmanplays 35th here brings to the table, which is now moving in here all across the board. Dejan Redredka coming in the north as well, trying to unload there. SPGs moving in. There's a Nikki Medis getting into the building. Relatively standard deployment there for an aggressive deck. SPGs spreading out here all across the north. In the south, Spetsnaz OP and the HMGs getting into this building here. Will most likely jump one forward to the next building, or will they stay here? That seems like they're going to stay here for now. But yeah, Tmanplays full control over the buildings here. There's a Nikki Radretka going in to cover the south, as an Afghansky is coming up as well. Meanwhile, at the same time, Lathans with some sneaky Rocket Apache play here behind the enemy lines. First CV coming in for Tmanplays. On the other side, 2 CVs coming up for Lathans as well, as the +3 zones can take up really quickly if you forget to cover them. So yeah, both sides with the same plan there with their first minute income. Whilst in the north, Bradley has to fight the SPGs. SPGs getting a good amount of damage on top of it. Fire Team Dragon trying to help out now. Bradley trying to get a kill. 1 goes down. 1 UATS is down. Whilst the Fire Team Dragon is moving forward as well. M150 moving around here. Whilst the SPGs are rolling forward. So Tmanplays tries to get a good amount of ground. Gets the kill here on the Bradley. 1 more UATS falling to Fire Team Dragon here. Whilst the CVs on both sides have entered the zones. Apache chilling behind enemy lines here now. That's another BRDM actually already coming in for the center. A good amount of UATs is here getting sold. So that will be a nice trickle in of money here for Tmanplays. Will allow the minute 3 income wave to be a bit bigger. Thanks to like 200 points of sold transports. On the other side, not as many transports sold. So as Bradleys are gonna stay on the battlefield. 2 Bradleys here trying to move around. SPG is still there though. Trying to snipe them. Not hitting. But Bradley's now trying to open fire in return. Autocannon up onto the SPG. Second Bradley not quite close enough. Gets heavily damaged here now. Smokes off to try to get away. Fireteam Dragon around. SPG sniping the M150 here instantaneously. Bradley struggling a bit to get through as the Spetsnaz OP is moving up as well. And the RPG-29 will one-shot these. So they have to get out of there. OH Scout trying to come in, trying to help out. And the SPG UATs in the north keep on bullying. BRDMU coming up. T-64BB, first tank on the battlefield. Lovely that they are back in the game, the T-64s. Really gorgeous tanks. Slowly moving forward here into the center. Whilst Lathans has to find a way to get access here, back in here. Brings in Bradleys with MG teams. That's a nice new cheap way of bringing in Bradleys. And in general, the MG teams in the armored divisions are quite nice because you can bring them in the IFVs and they are pretty cheap. So it's a nice cheap way of getting the IFVs. Whilst the Rocket Apache here gets the first CV snipe behind enemy lines here for Lathans. But 2 CVs already in the front sections for Tmanplays. So if both of these are unloaded, it will still be a point advantage for Tmanplays. MiG-27 gets the kill onto the Rocket Apache. So Rocket Apache not really paying off. Killing a 100 point units as a 125 point helicopter. So yeah, just a couple of points here for Lathans, but not really enough to be worth too much. M109s now trying to come in as artillery. Artillery for sure one of the big advantages of 3rd US here in this matchup, as they have good self-propelled artillery. Artillery on the side of the 35th not quite as good. No self-propelled artillery. Couple of self-propelled mortars with the Nonas and the Vagilek, but those are not super helpful. T-64 here moving forward. Another T-64B coming in the south. Tmanplays on a +1. The new CV, yeah, new CV being brought in for the north. That would then be a +4. So that will be putting quite a bit of stress on Lathans. Lathans setting up as encirclement for the north, or like a layered formation that may be able to collapse onto this town at once, maybe together with some artillery strikes and so on. Artillery also trying to find now the enemy CV here behind the lines. I don't think it's quite the time yet for doing that though. I think the artillery would be better used to try to dislodge enemy units in the front, destroy buildings so that the enemy can't use it for garrisoning their infantry anymore and so on. As more and more Bradleys are rolling onto the battlefield. Good amount of them with fireteam loss coming in the north. Another supply truck coming up here. M728 Cav actually in here to deal with infantry, but nothing here really to deal with T-64 BVs. Well, the Bradleys can deal with them, but not in a direct frontal engagement. Defensively with the TOW2s, they can obviously deal good damage. And if you get to throw enough of them onto a T-64 BV, I guess the TOW2s can overwhelm them as well. But not really what you want for a good assault onto it. For that you would need some M1A1s, or maybe even the HAs. As we are now on a +4 tick here. Tmanplays has replaced the unit in the rear. And this is looking like a pretty interesting game. But Tmanplays for sure at the advantage, thanks to the forward deployment and the good play with the SPG-9s. A couple of BMD-2s coming in around. Really relatively cheap IFV now as well, with an autocannon. And 30mm autocannon on these is quite deadly. So they can be quite helpful as well. 2 frontal armor, not amazing, but not half terrible either. Can take a bit of damage at least from other autocannons and so on. As the Bradleys are moving forward again. Fire teams that came in with them getting into position as well. Another Rocket Apache, this time for the center. Actually, not an insane amount of AA here on the side of Tmanplays. Like, with a good amount of Rocket Apaches, that could be overwhelmed. Bradley gets a nice snipe onto a supply drug. But Lathans needs to get a plan together on how to break this, as Tmanplays currently gets 160 points per minute of ticks, which puts a bit of a timer on Lathans. Not the fastest timer yet, but you still kind of want to get rid of that. Thunderbolt trying to deal with the ZSU here. Not finding a shot though. Actually getting hit by the AA a bit. In return, Rocket Apache here needs to be a bit careful. ZSU opening up fire on it. The dual barrel 23mm AA, pretty inaccurate. So takes a while to kill off helicopters and airplanes, as it also doesn't have the most amazing damage. But it can do it for sure. And the T-64BV here still holding the line in the rear. Thunderbolt finally got the kill there. Might get the kill onto the T-64BV as well. Yes, does get the kill there as well. Really important here. Thunderbolt still flying. No fighter coming around to kill it. ZSU and Igla trying to get a bit of damage on top of it as well. But the A-10 will survive. CV coming in for the south. So only a +2 now for Tmanplays. And 3rd US for sure having the better late game here out of these two divisions. Like, good artillery, good heavy tanks, good air tab. Similar level of helicopters, I guess. A bit better and for sure more numerous on the side of 35th. But yeah, even the infantry part, I would say, yes, you have a couple more cards as 35th, but quality-wise, the infantry on 3rd US level is not half bad either. So you need to be somewhat careful here as Tmanplays. You don't want to have the game go on for forever. You want to keep the pressure on. And losing the T-64 there to the A-10 and not getting the A-10 killed obviously is annoying. Bradley's now moving forward. MiG-27 coming in with HE bombs. Trying to stop them. But an F-15's squadron in the skies. Lathans obviously wants to win the air fight here. Big investment there actually. Especially as the player on the back end when it comes to map control and zones. Investing into 2 F-15s that don't directly infect the front line is a bold choice, I would say. Might pay off in the long run, but you first of all have to get into the long run to have those F-15s actually actively pay off. Mi-24V moving around as the pivots scramble to try to get some shots on top of it. More scouts coming up as well. Bradley moving now northbound. There's a Nicky BMD together with some Spetsnaz in the forest. Sure, good spot. Su-25 AT gets a Bradley. Flying back afterwards as the F-15s have to reload. Thunderbolt is back on the other side, but Afghanskis are coming up. Su-25 also could be firing some of its missiles onto the Thunderbolt. It's the other way around though, but Su-25 can run away from a Thunderbolt. It's faster. Igla and ZSU getting some damage in here as well. And that might not kill the A-10, but that for sure will prolong the reload time by a good margin. So even getting damage like this onto a plane is quite helpful. Same here with the pivots against the Su-25. Su-25 though might actively die here. But the Eagle has to be careful. Will not get killed off by the Afghansky. Different story about the Thunderbolts. Afghanskys really only good if airplanes actually get really close and low, as it only has 1,950 meter range against aircraft. Pretty good against helicopters though, and helpful against infantry as well. And it's really cheap for that. Like, it's a nice support unit for sure. Doesn't have radar, so you don't have to turn it off. But the anti-aircraft range really only helps against close air support. Apache hitting the Spetsnaz over here. Will get the kill. And Lathans a bit on a push here. Trying to get the damage through. Pivot's still around, so the the Mi-24Vs have to be careful as the pivots get their shots out. And Little anti-tank left right here right now. Maddie's still around though. They can be helpful against the Bradleys. Spetsnaz OP obviously could be helpful as well if it doesn't get eaten up by a Bushmaster beforehand. V24V needs to get the hell out of there. Already down to 50% health. Well, T64BV is back in business. Apache here. Ooh, flying a bit too close. Afghansky not quite in position to do anything about it. Pivot has to be careful here. Enemy ATGM flying around. And the Apache gets killed off by the AA. Is down. Has to be careful. Afghansky get out alive. T64BV helping out. One of the pivots is down. Second of the pivots might fall here as well. And that would allow the helicopters here, the Mi-24V and the Mi-8, to fly and roam a bit more freely. Pivot still under fire, and more Chaparrals coming up, though. They are pretty helpful against helicopters as they have the range. But the pivot goes down. Next Mi-24V is around, and the counterattack of Lathans here getting stalled out. Southern position not looking half bad. More Bradleys coming up. More M113s of engineers coming up. But the setup here of Tmanplays is pretty solid as well. 3 Afghanskis, couple of Iglas, so helicopters not going to do anything here. And 8 hands have to be really careful as well, have to stay away and not fly directly over it, otherwise they will get shredded here too. And without heavier tanks, I don't think you can break this here as well, as there's just so much AT that will slaughter your Bradleys, and you can't send in only your infantry. So maybe with artillery barrages in the long run this can be broken, but that will take a while. And currently Tmanplays has the +2 still. If it would be a 50-50 with the zone in the north also contested already, that wouldn't be as much of a problem here for Lathans, but has to do something at some point. And 109s are back to firing. They are now firing onto units in the south, trying to take out the SPGs here. Scouts in positions to spot stuff here. Another scout moving around. Okay. Afghansky hitting the scout. Hang pushed back. Spetsnaz OP. Moving up here. M1A1. Rolling forward. And yeah, I'm surprised that we didn't see any Abrams before. Like, I think 1 or 2 Abrams as the center of attention can be really helpful. Obviously, you have to be careful with the Su-25s and so on around. But Bradleys are strong units. They are great against infantry with the Bushmaster. They can hit armored units from afar pretty well as well. But you have to be... they don't tank that well. Like, for 60 points, they die still pretty easily with their armor. So you have to give them somewhat... some screen in front of them. And that often can be done with Abrams that can tank for them. And then the enemy can't really engage the combo. Because if they try to engage it, they have to fight off against super heavy damage TOW2. But yeah, the Bradleys in front, as you can see here, take a lot of damage, nearly going instantly down there to the T64, at least surviving with 1 hit point, but will be down in a second most likely. Trying to disengage, but there we go, T64 gets the kill. Second T64 on the artillery fire, but the intervention of Tmanplays here in the north gets better and better, and there's little left here for Lathans to move through. Spetsnaz also trying to hunt the enemy CV. And that means that Lathans kind of has to win in the south. Got rid of the SPGs here at least. Infantry now trying to engage. Anti-tank in the south, relatively limited actually. Only the Spetsnaz OP currently around. So that might allow for a nice push. T64B and the Spetsnaz OP being what holds them back a bit. But with 4 Bradleys and a couple of M113 together with the fire teams, that might work out, especially if the artillery also can do a bit more damage. And yeah, they are coming in hot. Like, this might work out here for Lathans now. Can they get the kill? Thanks for the follow, Funism. Welcome to this lovely channel. Spetsnaz OP. Hope you're having a great weekend. Yeah, Spetsnaz OP getting shredded. Not quite finding the kill, and everything here gets killed. So the T64... and that's Spetsnaz OP over here. Last remaining forces. Can they hold the line against this big push? 22 minutes still on the clock. If Lathans can get a good counter push here going, this game still might be winnable. But 1,000 points advantage obviously is quite sizable. And, ooh, 2 of the Bradleys already going down. Akula in the rear as well. No AA up here to help out against the Akula. And the Akula is a great investment now. Hitting the engineers hard here with its rockets. ATGMs also can get some nice kills. Yeah, Bradley here going down now. The Akula coming in at the right moment. Doing really good damage here. Using its Vickers long range. And the Thunderbolt trying to come to kill it. But there's so many Afghanskis here. There's a good amount of Iglas here. That should not... Oh, actually it gets the kill. Okay, but it should not get out alive. Well, it's still a fair trade. As the Thunderbolt here gets ripped apart. Crashes to the ground. Still a fair trade. Akula is worth more, but the Akula already did the job. M1A1 now is around, but there's only one Bradley remaining. The Apaches can't move forward with the 3 Afghanskis around. Next Akula already is in as well, so the M1A1 has to be careful. The Vickers with that 26 damage, best non-air-based ATGM in the game when it comes to damage output. M1A1s with their 17, even with their 17 frontal armor, take heavy damage from them. So you have to be really careful here as Lathans, but you can't really afford careful play. So it's a tough situation to be in. +5 actually now, as the Spetsnaz also snipe the enemy CV here behind enemy lines for Tmanplays. Get Lathans CV killed off. Apache tries to come forward in the north. Afghansky is a great tool against that though. Shredding this one. And this is looking really bad here for Mr. Lathans. And it looks like we might get into game 3 here, as Tmanplays really closing in on the 1-1. So let's see how this goes. The Thunderbolt coming in. M109 still in the rear. Still can do some damage, but I don't think there's... like, the amount of kills you would need now, it's just kind of insane. And the M1A1 here is stranded as well. The BV actually could take that fight and kill it. You know, this game is nearly as good as over. Thunderbolt flying around. Gets 1 T64 BV. Thunderbolt's really doing a good job here. But the AA setup of Tmanplays is good enough to stop them from going completely insane. And they have to be always vigilant, always careful. MiG-29's not around. Could be helpful against these, as they have some pretty nice long-range missiles for cheap air superiority fighters. But yeah, not around right now. Akula should get repaired here, but still really dangerous. M1A1 has to be careful around this. And yeah, now the M1A1s are around, but I feel like they should have been around earlier. Now there is no combined arms for them anymore. Like, now Lathans invests everything into the tanks. A bit one-sided in the investments that Lathans did. Like, the combined arms is key of the game for 3rd US, and we saw first only Bradley spam, and now we see only M1A1s, and everything else is already dead, so it's not really combined arms either. T64 will go down. Akula got killed off, but so did the next A10, and you don't have that many A10s left here as Lathans. So, helping out against future helicopters, helping out against more T64Bs with those will be tough. M1A1 here, down to 3 hit points, still trying to desperately find a kill here, but there's a lot of units here remaining. Desernikis now with the RPG-7VL. Not the most amazing weapons to deal with M1A1s, but they can do the job. And the T64B, missing actually against the M1A here. M1s could be able to overrun this. Apache not so much. The amount of AA here is still quite significant. Eagles flying too high for the Afghanskis, so they will get out. Got a shutdown onto something over here. But at the same time, the M1s get killed over here. And Lathans surrenders. Game number 2. So Tmanplays equalizes the score. 1-1 for each. And that means we will go to a decider game on the lovely map of Two Ways. Classic. And we're gonna see who is going into the semifinals. Who is our first semifinalist in WARNO League Season 0. And if you want to see me in a lovely NVA uniform, in the finals. Maybe you have a Twitch Prime laying around, guys. That could help out getting us there. As we're still a good bit off. So yeah, if you have any subscriptions, every subscription helps out quite a bit as well. So yeah, every subscription is appreciated and it gets when we're going to cast the finals. So yeah, we already sneak peek. This is going to be the hat that I'm going to wear. No more. Yeah, that's the sneak peek.